Derek Anderson's voice echoed across the crowded cafeteria like a warning bell. "Move away from our table, charity case." His words shot across the room, sharp enough to slice the air. Everyone turned. Everyone watched. And in the center of their attention stood a thin 16-year-old black boy clutching his lunch tray like armor. His name was Malik Johnson, the only black student at Ridgewell Preparatory Academy, a school where wealth dripped from every hallway and privilege was the unspoken uniform. Malik didn't reply. He rarely did. Silence was safer. Silence kept the storms inside instead of letting them explode outside. But Derek didn't like silence. Not from him. Before anyone could blink, Derek shoved Malik's tray upward, sending mashed potatoes and broccoli splattering across his shirt. Laughter erupted around them, bouncing off the walls like cruel applause. Malik stumbled backward, catching himself just before falling, cheeks burning under the weight of 200 pairs of eyes. "Oops," Derek smirked. "Guess gravity hates broke people." The room roared again. Malik tightened his jaw and lowered his head. He wanted to pick up his lunch, but his fingers trembled. He wanted to walk away, but his legs felt locked in place. He wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't form. All he could do was breathe, slow, steady, controlled. He had learned long ago that reacting only made them push harder. Every day at Ridgewell felt like walking into a battlefield without armor. Malik was brilliant, kind, and carried himself with quiet dignity. But none of that mattered in a school built on legacy money and inherited confidence. He didn't own designer shoes. He didn't have a famous last name. He didn't come from a family of donors. He was this scholarship kid, a label Derek and his friends turned into a weapon. He wiped the food from his shirt and forced himself to stand tall. "Are you done?" he asked softly, not meeting Derek's eyes. Wrong move. The cafeteria went silent for half a second, just long enough for Derek's smirk to sharpen. "What did you say to me?" he taunted, stepping closer until their faces were inches apart. Derek's friends circled behind him, blocking any escape. Malik felt his pulse quicken, but he held his ground. "I said, are you done?" Malik repeated, voice steady even when his heart wasn't. For a moment, even Derek didn't know how to respond. The quiet kid had pushed back, not loudly, not aggressively, but with a strength that came from something deeper. But Derek wasn't used to being challenged. Not by someone he considered beneath him. He shoved Malik again, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to remind him of the unspoken hierarchy. "Know your place," Derek hissed before turning away, already bored of the moment he created. Malik exhaled slowly and gathered what remained of his pride. The room slowly broke back into scattered conversations, though several students continued staring. Some looked curious, others uncomfortable, a few guilty. But no one stepped forward. No one helped. No one said a word. It had been like this since his first day. Whispered jokes, locker shoves, stolen textbooks, accidental spills on his projects. Teachers who saw, but didn't want trouble with wealthy families. Students who pitted him from a safe distance. Friends he never got the chance to have. But Malik wasn't weak. He wasn't fragile. He wasn't the picture they painted of him. Every night after school, he studied until his vision blurred. Every morning, he woke before sunrise to help his mother at the diner where she worked double shifts. His life was built on effort, real effort, the kind people like Derek would never understand. Malik didn't have money, but he had hunger. He didn't have fame, but he had discipline. He didn't have connections, but he had dreams bigger than any hallway in Ridgewell. Still, moments like this hurt. They always did. As he walked toward the restroom to clean his shirt, he caught sight of himself in the hallway mirror. A tired boy with tired eyes. A boy who didn't fit here. A boy who was surviving every day through quiet endurance. But then, something changed. Behind his reflection, the restroom door opened, and Mr. Lawson, his history teacher, stepped out. A man in his late 50s with soft eyes and a voice that carried wisdom instead of judgment. He glanced at Malik, taking in the food-stained shirt and the shaking hands. "Malik," he said gently, "are you all right?" That simple question nearly broke him. Someone finally asked. Someone finally saw. He swallowed hard and nodded. "I'm fine, sir. Just another day." Mr. Lawson frowned. "It shouldn't have to be." Malik didn't answer. Instead, he walked into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and began scrubbing the stains from his shirt. Mr. Lawson lingered outside the door. "One day," he said softly, "they'll realize they mistook your silence for weakness." But silence is only the beginning of your story, not the end of it. Those words landed somewhere deep inside him, like a seed planted in soil that had waited too long for sunlight. Malik looked at himself again. For the first time, he didn't just see the tired boy. He saw someone who could become something else. Someone who could rise. Someone who could break every limit placed on him. He didn't know how yet. He didn't know when. But he knew he would. And that belief, quiet, stubborn, steady, would carry him through the next painful years until the day he returned, stronger than any of them ever imagined. The boy they mocked would one day arrive from the sky. The bell rang at 3:15 p.m., releasing the students of Ridgewell Prep into the polished marble hallways that gleamed under the afternoon sun. Laughter echoed everywhere, light, careless, privileged. Malik walked alone, shoulders tense, backpack slung over one arm, every step heavy from the weight of another exhausting day. His shirt was mostly dry now, but the moisture left behind a faint stain, a permanent reminder of Derek's lunchtime lesson. He didn't cry. He never did at school. But his heart felt tight, squeezed by the kind of silent pain only someone who's been ignored, dismissed, or pushed aside could understand. He walked toward the main entrance, keeping his head down so he didn't have to meet the stairs. A group of students brushed past him, the scent of expensive cologne trailing behind them. "Man, did you see his face when Derek dumped the tray?" One of them laughed. "Classic. Dude's always asking for it." Malik kept walking, pretending their words didn't sting. Pretending was exhausting, but it was safer than reacting. As he pushed open the front doors and stepped into the crisp afternoon air, he inhaled deeply, letting the cold fill his lungs. He always felt better outside, away from the noise of expectations and judgment. His mother's old Honda Civic waited in the parking lot, faded paint and slightly dented bumper shining like a beacon of comfort. She leaned against the driver's door, still wearing her diner apron, exhaustion etched into her soft smile. "Hey, baby. Long day." Malik forced a grin. "Just normal." His mother's eyes narrowed, not because she didn't believe him, but because she always knew when he wasn't telling the whole truth. Still, she didn't press. She reached out and rubbed his shoulder. "Let's go home. I made cornbread this morning." Cornbread meant comfort. Cornbread meant love. Cornbread meant the world wasn't such a terrible place. They drove through town, passing the tree-lined streets, the boutique shops, the expensive cafes filled with students from his school. Places he never entered unless required. Places where the stairs lingered a little too long. His mother hummed softly to the radio, a melody he recognized from childhood. He looked at her, at the lines forming near her eyes, at the way her hands gripped the wheel just a little too tightly. She worked 3 jobs to keep their life steady. Diner waitress in the mornings, janitorial shift in the evenings, weekend catering assistant. She slept 4 hours a night, sometimes less, but she never complained. She always said, "Sacrifice is just love working overtime." That was why Malik couldn't break. Not when she worked this hard. Not when she believed in him so fiercely. When they reached home, a small 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, Malik went straight to his desk. He still had homework, essays, and 2 chapters of chemistry to read. Even on days like this, he couldn't fall behind. Falling behind wasn't an option. He opened his laptop, ready to power through, but the cafeteria scene replayed in his mind like a loop he couldn't escape. Derek's voice, the laughter, the stares, the silence, always the silence. He closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. His chest tightened. The world he lived in felt too small, too suffocating. Ridgewell's doors were polished, but every one of them felt locked. A quiet knock interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Lawson stood in the doorway of their apartment, holding a folder and wearing that gentle expression that had steadied Malik earlier. Malik's mother greeted him warmly. "Mr. Lawson, come in, come in." He stepped inside with a kind smile. "I hope I'm not intruding. I just wanted to talk to Malik about something important." Malik's stomach twisted. Was the school finally punishing him for something Derek caused? But Mr. Lawson sat down across from him and placed the folder on the table. "Malik, I've been teaching for 30 years. I've seen students from every background, every personality, every ability. And I can tell you with complete certainty, you're one of the brightest minds I've ever taught." Malik blinked. "Me? Yes, you," Mr. Lawson chuckled. "You ask questions other students overlook. Your essays show depth and empathy. You don't memorize, you understand. That's rare. Malik's mother pressed a hand to her heart, pride softening her tired eyes. Mr. Lawson continued, but I also see the weight you carry. And I know why. Ridgewell is not always kind. But Malik, please hear this. What they say about you has nothing to do with who you really are. It only shows who they are. Malik swallowed hard. It doesn't feel that way. I know. Mr. Lawson opened the folder. Which is why I brought you something. These are applications for summer programs, prestigious ones. Science camps, leadership academies, writing workshops. Places where students like you thrive. Places where you won't be the only one without a trust fund. Places where you'll be seen. Malik hesitated. But these programs, they cost money. Most offer scholarships, Mr. Lawson said softly. And I will personally help you apply to every single one. His mother touched his shoulder again. Baby, you deserve this. Don't let anyone make you smaller than you are. The warmth in her voice cracked something inside him. For the first time that day, he let himself breathe fully. Deep. Steady. Honest. Okay, he whispered. I'll try. That night, after his mother fell asleep and the apartment grew quiet except for the hum of the washing machines downstairs, Malik stared at his reflection in the window. He didn't see the boy who got mashed potatoes thrown on him. He didn't see the charity case. He didn't see the outsider. He saw someone standing on the edge of something bigger. Someone with potential bursting at the seams. Someone who, if he held on long enough, might transform the world's cruelty into fuel. He placed his hand on the glass and made a silent promise to the boy he was and the man he would become. One day, he would rise so high that no one could push him down again. Spring arrived at Ridgewell Prep with blooming trees and warm breezes, but nothing about Malik's life felt lighter. The bullying didn't stop, it simply changed form. Derek and his crew shifted from physical humiliation to quieter, sharper tactics. Whispered comments. Fake smiles. Snickers when Malik raised his hand in class. Teachers who looked away because confronting wealthy families meant trouble. But something inside Malik had changed since the day Mr. Lawson gave him those applications. He no longer walked with his head down. He no longer shrank when Derek approached. His silence wasn't fear anymore. It was focus. It was strategy. It was strength growing roots. Every night, he worked on essays for those summer programs. Leadership academies. STEM workshops. Writing camps. Hundreds of questions asking who he was, what he wanted, and why he believed he belonged. Questions he had never allowed himself to answer before. He wrote about his mother's sacrifice. About the loneliness of being the only black student in a school built on privilege. About pushing through humiliation, not because he enjoyed the fight, but because he had no choice. He wrote honestly, bravely, with a voice he didn't know he had until he put words on the page. Mr. Lawson read every draft. This, he'd say, tapping a paragraph, is brilliance. Don't hide this. Not here. Not anywhere. And slowly, Malik began to believe it. But Ridgewell wasn't done testing him. One afternoon, during a group project, Derek smirked as Malik approached their lab table. Oh no, he drawled. The charity genius is here to save us again. Malik ignored him, setting down his notebook. Let's divide the work. Derek scoffed loudly. I don't take orders from you. You don't have to, Malik said calmly. But you still have to do your part. That quiet confidence irritated Derek more than any insult could. What did you say to me? I said do your part. Derek's fist tightened around his pen. His jaw clenched. His eyes darkened. But instead of starting a scene, he forced a laugh. Man, whatever. Just stay in your lane. The difference was clear. Derek wanted the old Malik, the boy who flinched, who apologized, who let humiliation wash over him like rain he couldn't escape. But this Malik didn't bend. He didn't cower. He didn't give Derek the reaction he craved. And that terrified Derek. Later that day, Malik stayed behind after class to clean up supplies. As he picked stray papers from the floor, he overheard Derek boasting to his friends in the hallway. He thinks he's better than us now. Little scholarship, boy got brave. One friend asked, why does it bother you so much? Derek's answer was sharp. Because he's supposed to stay in his place. Those words hit Malik like ice water. Not because they hurt, but because they revealed the truth he had always known. Derek wasn't just cruel. He was threatened. Threatened by Malik's intelligence. Threatened by Malik's resilience. Threatened by anyone who dared step outside the box he put them in. Malik packed his things and walked out of the classroom. But as he passed Derek and his friends, he didn't break stride. He didn't look at the floor. He didn't shrink. He walked straight ahead. Derek noticed, and something in his expression flickered, something Malik didn't recognize then, but would understand years later. Fear. Not fear of Malik, but fear of being outgrown. That evening, when Malik returned home, an envelope sat on the kitchen table. His mother stood beside it, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel, tears shining in her eyes. "Baby," she whispered, "you need to open this." His heart raced as he tore the envelope open. The first line read, "Congratulations. You have been selected for the National Science Scholars Summer Program." Malik froze. His mother gasped, covering her mouth. It was the most competitive program in the country, acceptance rate under 2%. Students from wealthy private schools competed for it. Students with perfect test scores, tutors, and parents who wrote checks with a flick of a pen. But Malik had earned it. His mother hugged him tightly, whispering a prayer of gratitude. Malik held her like she was the anchor that kept him steady in every storm. He wasn't done, not even close. But this was the first win he had ever gotten in a world stacked against him. More envelopes arrived over the next week. Accepted, accepted, accepted. 3 programs. 4, 5, all with full scholarships. It felt unreal. It felt impossible. It felt deserved. Meanwhile, Derek watched from a distance as teachers congratulated Malik in the hallway, as counselors pulled him aside for opportunities, as whispers of scholarships, prestigious, and future leader floated through the school. Malik didn't celebrate loudly, but his quiet joy glowed like a rising sun. One afternoon, Derek approached him outside after school. Malik tensed, expecting another insult. Instead, Derek said, "So you think you're somebody now?" Malik held his gaze. "I've always been somebody." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind rustled the trees. Cars passed by. Students laughed in the distance. Then Derek stepped closer. "Just remember, nobody cares about charity cases after high school." Malik almost smiled. Maybe. Or maybe high school is just where the real story starts. Derek's nostrils flared, but Malik simply turned and walked away. That night, Malik sat at his desk and drafted a new kind of promise. Not a wish, not a dream, a vow. One day, he would build something so great, so powerful, that no bully, no system, no barrier could ever silence him again. He wouldn't just rise, he would redefine what rising looked like. He didn't know it yet, but the boy Derek tried to erase would become the man the world couldn't ignore. The summer before senior year changed Malik's life in ways Ridgewell would never understand. While Derek spent June on family vacations in Italy and July at country clubs with friends, Malik boarded a bus at dawn headed toward the National Science Scholars Campus. 3 states away, a place where no one knew him as the scholarship kid. Here, he wasn't the outsider. He wasn't the target. He wasn't the boy people whispered about when they thought he couldn't hear. He was simply Malik. From the moment he stepped into the bright, buzzing lab hall, he felt something shift. Students from every background filled the room. Kids with thick glasses, kids who loved math like music, kids who spoke about ideas with sparks in their eyes. No mocking, no sneers, no Derek Anderson waiting to embarrass him. Just curiosity, passion, and possibility. For the first time, Malik felt like he belonged somewhere. His group project partner, Ava, was a girl with a brilliant smile and a sharp mind. On the first day, she tapped his notebook and said, "You think like an engineer. You ever consider building something big?" Malik shrugged. "I don't know. I've never had the chance." Ava shook her head. "Everyone has the chance. Some just have to fight harder for it." Those words stayed with him all summer. During the final showcase, Malik's team presented a prototype software that predicted supply chain delays with impressive accuracy. Professors praised his approach, mentors offered guidance, and one guest speaker, a young black entrepreneur, pulled him aside afterward. "You've got talent," he told Malik. "But more important, you've got hunger. Don't ever let this world convince you your place is smaller than your dreams." That moment planted something permanent inside him. When the program ended and Malik returned to Ridgewell for his final year, he walked through the doors with a different stride. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't boastful. But he was no longer the boy who whispered his brilliance to himself. He had proof now. Proof that he belonged in rooms filled with innovators and thinkers, not in the shadows where bullies tried to keep him. Derek noticed the change immediately. On the first week of school, Malik answered a question in AP Calculus that left half the class stunned. Even the teacher paused before saying, "That is correct," and extremely well-reasoned. Whispers spread through the room. That was impressive. When did Malik get like this? Did he study all summer or something? Derek's jaw tightened. At lunch, he tried to reclaim authority. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded, voice loud enough for Malik to hear. Smart doesn't mean successful. Nobody cares about nerds after graduation. His friends laughed, but the tone was different. Forced. Uncertain. Because they all saw what Derek couldn't accept. Malik was changing, and Derek was staying exactly the same. By winter, Malik received college acceptance letters, some expected, some unbelievable. State schools, private universities. And then, one crisp January morning, the envelope that changed everything. Stanford. Full scholarship. Malik froze on the porch holding the letter, breath gone, heart racing. His mother stepped outside, confusion turning into joy as she saw his expression. "Baby, what is it?" He handed her the letter with shaking hands. She read the first line, covered her mouth, and cried into his shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." The news spread quietly among teachers, who smiled and congratulated him in hallways. Mr. Lawson hugged him like a proud uncle. Counselors beamed. Even students who barely knew him said things like, "That's amazing," or "You deserve it, man." But Derek? Derek didn't say a word. He heard the whispers. He saw the looks. He saw Malik's name on the acceptance list taped outside the counselor's office. But every time he passed Malik in the hallway, he looked everywhere except at him. Because acknowledging Malik's success meant acknowledging his own failure. Graduation arrived with all its pageantry, gowns, caps, speeches, tears. Malik walked across the stage with pride radiating from him like sunlight. His mother clapped the loudest. Teachers stood for him. A few students cheered. Derek sat in the front row with his friends, watching bitterly as applause filled the auditorium. He didn't speak to Malik. He didn't congratulate him. He didn't even look his direction. Because deep down, Derek knew something he would never admit. He had lost. He had spent 4 years trying to break a boy who refused to bend. He had thrown insults, humiliation, cruelty. Yet Malik still rose, not just in grades or awards, but in spirit. After the ceremony, Malik stepped into the warm June air and inhaled deeply. This was the last time he would ever walk Ridgewell's halls. The last time he would be defined by its expectations. The last time he'd feel the shadow of Derek's voice in his ears. He glanced back at the school one final time. Not with bitterness. Not with anger. With gratitude. Because this place, the pressure, the pain, the isolation, had forged him. Had forced him to grow strength from silence. Had taught him resilience in ways privilege never could. He whispered to himself, "This isn't the end. It's the beginning." Stanford was harder than anything he'd imagined. Classes were intense. Competition was fierce. Students were brilliant. But Malik thrived. He studied nights, coded early mornings, absorbed everything he could. He made friends who believed in him, mentors who guided him, and connections that would change his life forever. His sophomore year, he met Jonah, a tech-driven visionary who saw the world in algorithms and innovation. They bonded instantly. "You ever think about building something together?" Jonah asked one night in the dorm lounge. Malik smiled. "All the time." And so they started. A small idea. A few lines of code. A dream scribbled on a whiteboard. They worked until sunrise, slept in classrooms, lived off vending machine snacks. Their project grew. Then grew more. Then exploded. Investors called. Users multiplied. Professors took notice. Their software solved real problems in a way no one else had imagined. By senior year, Malik had something he never expected. A startup. A team. A future. And all along, silence fueled him. Not as a wound, but as a weapon. The years Derek tried to break him became the years Malik learned how unbreakable he truly was. Malik didn't know that somewhere, miles away, Derek was drifting through life with no purpose, no fire, no growth, just entitlement and echoes of old glory days. But Malik wasn't thinking about Derek anymore. He was thinking about possibilities, about impact, about the empire he would build. Because Johnson had finally become everything Ridgewell feared he might become. A force the world would have no choice but to notice. By the time Malik turned 27, the The world he lived in looked nothing like the one he had escaped. His startup, once a dorm room experiment built on late-night coding sessions and vending machine coffee, had grown into a sleek, powerful tech company with offices in 3 cities and hundreds of employees. Investors admired him. Industry leaders sought him out. Articles appeared in Forbes, Wired, and TechCrunch praising his leadership and innovation. He was no longer the silent boy hiding behind textbooks. He was CEO Malik Johnson, recognized, respected, unstoppable. He owned his own aviation charter company now, too. After working himself to exhaustion for years, Malik discovered flying, one of the few places where his mind felt quiet. He earned his pilot license, bought 1 helicopter, then 2 more, then eventually an entire fleet. Flying wasn't just freedom. It was proof that he had risen beyond every limit placed on him. Every time he lifted off the ground, he felt like he was rising above the past that tried so hard to cage him. But Ridgewell Prep? He didn't think about it. He didn't think about Derek. He didn't think about the cafeteria, the whispers, or the silence that once felt suffocating. Malik had outgrown that world so completely, it almost felt like a dream, an old shadow that no longer touched him. Then one afternoon, his assistant placed an envelope on his desk. A glossy invitation, gold-trimmed, pretentious in every way. Ridgewell Class of 2014 to 10-year reunion. October 19th. The Ridgewell Country Club. Malik stared at it for a long moment, a strange pull forming in his chest. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want validation. He didn't need applause. But he did want closure. He wanted to walk into that room as the man he became, not the boy they tried to break. He placed the invitation aside and continued working, pretending it didn't affect him. But that night, lying in bed in his Tribeca loft overlooking city lights, he found himself thinking about the past more than he had in years. The boy he used to be, the one who ate lunch alone, who stayed silent, who forced himself to endure cruelty, deserved to stand tall in the place he once felt small. So Malik made a decision. He would go, but he would not walk in. He would arrive. Meanwhile, miles away, Derek Anderson stared at his own reflection in his bathroom mirror, the same mirror he had looked into since childhood. At 28, he was the vice president of Anderson Real Estate because his father had given him the position. His friends were the same friends he had in high school. His world was the same streets, the same country clubs, the same comfort zones. But something heavy sat inside him these days. The reunion stirred old pride in him, a feeling that he was still someone important, still someone others looked up to. He sent the invitations eagerly, assuming everyone would admire how well he had turned out. In the group chat with his old crew, he typed, "Send that invite to Malik too. Bet $20 he shows up in an Uber wearing the same old hoodie." His friends laughed. But something deeper had begun to gnaw at Derek's confidence. He didn't know why. Not yet. October arrived quickly. 3 days before the reunion, Malik sat in his office overlooking the Hudson River, surrounded by glass walls, framed awards, and monitors displaying analytics and projections. Jonah, now his company's CTO and oldest friend, walked in holding 2 coffees. "You going to that reunion?" Jonah asked with a raised eyebrow. Malik sipped quietly. "Maybe. Maybe? You bought a $3 million helicopter last month, and you're saying maybe." Malik smirked. "I didn't buy it for the reunion. But it would make one hell of an entrance." Malik laughed softly, shaking his head. "It's not about flexing. It's for the kid I used to be." Jonah nodded. "Then do it for him." That night, Malik opened a message from an old classmate, Sarah, one of the few people at Ridgewell who treated him with respect. "Just so you know, Derek and the others are expecting you to show up looking broke." They made a bet. He read it twice. There it was. The same old cruelty. The same old arrogance. Except now he wasn't 16. Malik didn't reply. He didn't get angry. He didn't feel bitterness creeping back in. Instead, he felt something else. Calm, steady clarity. He would go. He would rise above. And he would show up as himself. Nothing more, nothing less. The morning of the reunion, Malik woke early. The sky over Manhattan glowed pale orange. He stood on his rooftop balcony drinking coffee, feeling the breeze remind him of how far he'd come. He dressed in a tailored black suit, clean, sharp, timeless. The kind of suit that didn't beg for attention but commanded respect effortlessly. A Tom Ford piece he had bought not because of the brand, but because he liked the way it made him feel, confident, steady. whole. At 5:45 p.m., he arrived at the helipad. Jonah waited for him beside the sleek, dark-painted helicopter bearing the logo of Malik's aviation company, Johnson Air. "You ready?" Jonah asked, handing him the headset. Malik placed it on and gazed across the city lights. "Ready." As the blades began to spin, the helicopter lifted gracefully from the pad, rising into the sky. Buildings shrank below them. Cars became dots. The world that once seemed overwhelming now looked small enough to fit in the palm of his hand. "Feels different when you fly toward your past," Jonas said through the headset. Malik nodded. "Feels like closing a door." The 42-minute flight was quiet, peaceful. Malik watched the horizon as memories flickered like old film reels. Lunch trays, whispered insults, the lonely walk to class, the silence he carried for years. But none of it hurt anymore. It just reminded him of how far he had traveled. As they neared the country club, the manicured lawns and glowing building came into view. Jonah descended slowly until the helicopter hovered above the reunion grounds. Dozens of people spilled outside, phones raised, expressions stunned. Malik's heart stayed calm. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't spectacle. This was reclamation. The helicopter touched down. The blade slowed. The wind scattered leaves across the lawn. And as the door opened, Malik stepped out into the cool October evening, a man carved from discipline, hardship, and brilliance. Someone gasped softly. Someone whispered, "No way." Someone else muttered, "He flew himself here?" Derek, standing near the entrance, froze completely. Because in that moment, he realized the truth he had avoided for 10 years. The boy he bullied didn't just escape the box Derek built for him. He became someone Derek could never catch. Malik adjusted his suit jacket, nodded politely to the stunned crowd, and walked forward with calm confidence. The years they never saw had become the years that defined him. And tonight, the world that once tried to crush him would finally see who he truly was. When Malik stepped onto the grass of the Ridgewell Country Club, the wind settled, the rotor blades spun to a slow halt, and silence rippled across the crowd like a shockwave. 47 former classmates stood frozen, expressions split between awe, confusion, and disbelief. Camera flashes went off. Phones lifted. Eyes widened. For the first time in his life at Ridgewell, every single person looked at him, really looked at him. Malik didn't smirk, didn't gloat, didn't carry even a shadow of arrogance. He simply walked forward with quiet confidence, his polished shoes touching the earth of a place that once treated him like he didn't belong on it. Derek Anderson, the same boy who once shoved Malik into cafeteria tables, the boy whose laughter echoed in Malik's nightmares, stood slowly from the outdoor bar. His face turned pale under the warm club lights. His fiancée looked from Malik to Derek, confusion creeping across her features as she sensed the power shift sweeping through the gathering. Malik approached with the poised grace of someone who no longer carried the weight of other people's opinions. "Derek," he said with calm, respectful nod. Derek swallowed. "Why, yeah, welcome. Glad you made it." The lie trembled in his voice. Before Derek could say more, classmates rushed in around Malik, their words overlapping with excitement. "Is that your helicopter? Did you actually fly here? Are you the Malik Johnson who runs that tech company? I saw you in Forbes." Dozens of questions, dozens of voices. Suddenly, Malik was the center of gravity. 10 years ago, he was invisible. Tonight, he was undeniable. He answered with warmth, patience, humility. He didn't boast. He didn't brag. He spoke the way he had always been taught. Kindly, respectfully, like someone who remembered what real hardship meant. Meanwhile, Derek stood off to the side, shrinking into the background of his own event. His friends, who once followed his lead in everything, drifted away from him, pulled magnetically toward Malik's calm brilliance. Chelsea, Derek's fiancée, approached Malik with a cautious smile. "That entrance was incredible," she said softly. "I don't think anyone has ever arrived to a reunion like that." Malik smiled politely. "Thank you. It was the simplest way to get here from the city." Her eyes widened. "You flew yourself?" "Of course," Malik said gently. "I'm a licensed pilot." Chelsea blinked, stunned. From behind her, Derek's voice cracked. You own the helicopter?" Malik nodded. "I own the company that owns them." The words hit Derek like a punch to the chest. He looked down at his drink, jaw tightening, his facade collapsing inch by inch. Then Mr. Lawson, Malik's former teacher, stepped through the crowd. The older man's eyes shimmered with genuine pride. "Malik Johnson," he said warmly. "I knew the world would see you one day." Malik's expression softened. He stepped forward and hugged the teacher who, years ago, had been one of the only people who believed in him. "Thank you," Malik whispered. "You helped me see myself when no one else did." A hush fell over the group as people witnessed the moment. Something pure, something deeply human. Mr. Lawson pulled back, wiping a tear. "Your success is a reminder that kindness matters. Courage matters. And resilience matters most of all." The room applauded quietly. Derek's throat tightened. He turned away, unable to watch. Minutes later, classmates formed a circle around Malik, asking him about his journey. "How did you do it? What motivated you? What pushed you through everything you faced here?" Malik paused, choosing his words carefully. "I didn't succeed because of Ridgewell," he said softly. "I succeeded despite it." The air stilled. He continued, "High school wasn't easy for me. Some of you saw it. Some ignored it. Some." He glanced briefly toward Derek, but without hate, without accusation. "Some contributed to it." Derek flinched. "But I learned something important," Malik said. "Pain doesn't define you. People's opinions don't define you. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It can be the beginning of something powerful. And the greatest victory is not revenge. It's becoming someone you're proud of." A quiet, emotional stillness washed over the group. Chelsea whispered, "That's beautiful." Brad, one of Derek's old friends, stepped forward. "Malik," he said softly, "I owe you an apology. We all should have stood up. We were cowards. And I'm sorry for everything." A few others nodded. Some apologized too, carrying shame in their eyes but sincerity in their voices. Malik accepted each apology with grace. "You acknowledging it now is what matters," he said gently. "We were kids. We can all grow." His kindness did something none of their cruelty ever achieved. It humbled them. But Derek stood alone at the edge of the group, staring at the ground. For the first time in his life, he felt truly small, not because of Malik's success, but because of the emptiness inside himself. Brad nudged Derek. "Say something, man. This is your moment to be better." But Derek's voice trembled. I can't." "Why?" "Because if I say it out loud, then everything I believed about myself for 10 years falls apart." Brad whispered, "It already has." Eventually, Malik noticed Derek alone. He walked toward him, not with anger, but with compassion. Derek looked up, eyes glossy. "I wasn't a good person to you," he whispered. "No," Malik said softly. "You weren't. And I don't expect forgiveness." Malik nodded. "Forgiveness isn't something you demand. It's something you grow into. But I don't hate you, Derek. I moved on." Those words cut deeper than any insult Derek had ever endured. Because Malik didn't hate him. Malik didn't think about him. Malik simply outgrew him. The world around them buzzed with chatter, but this moment remained still, just the two of them, and the truth between them. "Take care of yourself," Malik said, offering Derek a silent opportunity for change. "You still can." Then Malik walked away. Derek stood trembling, realizing the most painful truth of all. Malik wasn't his enemy. His enemy was the man he had become. The rest of the night unfolded with warmth. Malik connected with old classmates, laughed with people who finally saw him clearly, and listened to gratitude he never expected to hear. Near the end of the event, someone tapped a glass and called out, "Speech." The crowd cheered. Malik stepped forward, heart steady. "I'm grateful to be here," he began. "Not to prove anything, but to close a chapter. We all grow. We all change. And we all deserve the chance to evolve beyond who we used to be." He raised his glass. "To kindness. To resilience. To rewriting the stories people wrote for us. And to never shrinking just because someone else tried to keep us small." A wave of applause followed, some emotional, some tearful, all sincere. Later, as Malik boarded the helicopter, Jonah asked, "You good?" Malik looked out at the country club shrinking in the distance, lights fading behind them, the past dissolving into darkness. "I'm good," he said softly. "Better than good." The helicopter lifted into the night, smooth and silent. Malik stared down at the town that once defined him, now nothing more than a cluster of lights beneath his feet. He whispered, "We made it." And for the first time in his life, the sky felt like home.